Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and Threads at Movies TV Mad X, and now on TikTok, Movies TV Mad Free. A very warm welcome to Saturday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. Why I refuse to watch The Acolyte, because from what I'm hearing from other people who have seen the first 4 episodes or so, it's more of the same from New Hollywood. But I want to take a different angle considering I haven't seen it. I've heard that episode 3 changes the kind of lore of the Jedi forever, kind of making the Jedi the villains of the piece. Now that's an interesting thing, by the way, because if you look at the prequels, you know, George Lucas isn't exactly painting them in cream and sugar, is he? I mean, their hubris is there to be seen. Oh no, we don't think the Sith could have come back without us knowing it. Oh, Anakin, we can't train you because you miss your mother. Oh no, how dare a little boy miss his mother? So I think that Lucas was painting them not to be evil, but maybe to be arrogant and to have hubris. I don't think that's the same thing as what I'm hearing is happening with the Acolyte in episode 3. And this idea that there's grey areas within the Jedi. They're not good, they're not bad. There's no good and evil. Because the format of Star Wars was about good and evil. But again, without seeing it, I don't want to be too harsh on it. But it does seem more of the same. We saw an interview with Amanda Stenberg, who has plenty of Hollywood DNA. Her casting is not diversity, but I'd certainly go there. She's a very attractive woman, isn't she? Did you see her on that red carpet with that outfit? Woo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, I wouldn't mind some of that, boys. Anyway, so she was in an interview. Was it with Trevor Noah? I don't know. But they were talking about enjoying white tears. What can I say? But I've decided not to be angry and to choose love. How do I choose love? By not watching it. I have the Star Wars that I love. The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And there's a wonderful documentary disc that I have, Empire of Dreams, with some other mini docu Star Wars stuff. It is brilliant. That is the Star Wars that I love. So a lot of people saying Disney Star Wars has killed Star Wars. It's killed Disney Star Wars, but Disney Star Wars was never alive in the first place. There's a difference between Disney Star Wars and George Lucas's Star Wars. We've discussed before the reasons that George sold to Disney. I think he knew exactly what he was doing, and he wanted to teach the fans who hated him and constantly criticised him a lesson. I think George Lucas is a pioneer, and he knew exactly what he was doing. I mean, I think I was watching a video and someone was saying George must be heartbroken to see what they've done to his creation. I don't think that's the case at all. His Star Wars still exists. It's still great. It's still groundbreaking. You can't change what he did. You can't change his movies. I'm sure they'd love to try. They're all for rewriting history. Because, as we know from The Acolyte, they're rewriting Star Wars Jedi history. But they can't ruin what George did or change it, because you can't change those movies. But I want to ask a question. How are Harvey Weinstein's victims feeling today when they see that woman, his former personal assistant, sitting there in interviews laughing her fucking head off? It's like she's laughing at them, Amanda Stenberg, and the rest of them laughing with her. How are the victims supposed to feel? I'm not here to make a big accusation against, this former Harvey Weinstein assistant. But there's no question it's a problematic appointment by Kathleen Kennedy. Because you can imagine that there's many gay female producers, actually talented ones out there. Why did you choose Leslie Headland, Kathleen? It doesn't make sense. Do you understand how toxic your choice was? You're not hurting the so-called White Tears Brigade. You're hurting the victims of Harvey Weinstein. It's like you support what Harvey Weinstein did. Casting these women, employing Leslie Headland as the showrunner and producer and creative arm of this Star Wars series doesn't create white tears. It creates the tears of the victims of Harvey Weinstein. This is not supporting women. This is not LGBTQ positive. This is toxic. This is what New Hollywood is. Some people say, Mick, why are they doing this? And I say, well, it's the people running Hollywood today. They're extremists. They're far left activists. So they know nothing more than what they're doing. This is what they want to do. They believe that entertainment isn't about entertainment. It's about this. This is what entertainment means to them. Using their ideology and printing it on their, using the words loosely, entertainment. And here we are right now. Here we are with The Acolyte. Here we are with new Disney Doctor Who. Here we are with new Disney MCU. Ever since Endgame, it's been a disaster. The same ideology being imprinted with the MCU. They've destroyed it. And as I say, Disney's Star Wars was never at the heights of George Lucas's Star Wars. I think The Force Awakens had a lot of positivity around it. Then people rewatched it and thought, oh dear, this is just a rip-off of A New Hope. This ain't great, but at least there wasn't as much toxicity. Some people didn't like Rey as a lead, being a female lead. Didn't have a problem with that personally, but there was issues with her being so proficient with the Force. It was a bit weird. The explanation in The Rise of Skywalker was ridiculous. But calling that film The Rise of Skywalker is very Disney Star Wars, isn't it? It's nothing to do with The Rise of Skywalker. It's the rise of Rey Palpatine. And this is where we are. So I don't think you're creating white tears. I think you're being utterly toxic to the victims of Harvey Weinstein. And if what I'm hearing about The Acolyte is true, then it's, normal service at, New Hollywood, at Disney Star Wars. We've seen it with their other series as well. So it doesn't work for people. Obviously, critics are giving it the full scores and fans are not happy. The audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes aren't good, but we're talking, people are accusing fans of review bombing. But of course, there's such a thing as positive review bombing, which we see a lot more than fan review bombing anyway. So when people say to me, Mick, why are they doing this? Why can't people enjoy their entertainment? Because this is where we are. And you see, the biggest threat to diverse groups are the far left in Hollywood. They're the ones dividing them away from the mainstream population. They're creating hatred towards diverse groups. Because the truth is, they don't want all of us to live in peace. They hate straight white men. They hate us, and they're making the enemy. I saw a clip of this week's Doctor Who, Rogue, where a white man, an attractive white man, is approaching Ruby Sunday, and she puts him in his place and calls him a Stilton. This is where we are. And it's horrible. And it's nasty. And they will continue to be nasty. But I choose love and not toxicity and not nastiness. And that's why I'm not watching The Acolyte. So why am I watching Doctor Who? Well, I really wanted to watch it for my platform this year. I've always said I will always watch Doctor Who, and I think there's a point where I'll have to switch off. And I'm just very interested to see how middle of the road and pathetic Ruby Sunday's mystery box revelations are at the end of the season. And we're not far away from that. The pain is almost over if you haven't enjoyed this year's Doctor Who. And I think most people, if they're being honest with themselves, can say this is probably the worst season in the show's history. That's worse than the McCoy era, or the Baker era, or the Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker era, that this season has made look better. I've said before, I actually always enjoyed The Power of the Doctor. I thought it was a gret send-off for, Jodie's Doctor and the Chibnall era, and it celebrated Doctor Who. It celebrated Doctor Who then more than RTD's Not So Specials did, which apparently was supposed to celebrate the 60th anniversary. They didn't celebrate Doctor Who. And you say, whether it's The Acolyte, whether it's Doctor Who, this is where we are now. They hate straight white men. They hate us. So we are in a place that's very, very odd. I don't think history or entertainment has ever been in this position before, where it's gaslighting, it's racism against, and bigotry against straight white men. I suppose it's kind of, if you like, similar to what happened in the Second World War. I mean, it won't be long, will it, until they take us into little chambers? Why not? Feminists are always saying, kill all men. Isn't that going to be next? The people in Hollywood would be very offended by me comparing what happened in the Second World War to that. But I do see some similarities here. It's the propaganda against straight white men. It's there. It's beta male feminist producers doing it as well. In fact, the male feminist producers like Russell T Davies are the fucking worst. Their hatred is even worse than what you're seeing in The Acolyte from Headland. But Headland shouldn't be running this show because there's a lot of unanswered questions in her role in what Harvey Weinstein did. We could never be sure if she knew. Of course, I have an opinion about that. We can never be sure, but people will always say, how can she not know? And of course, there are stories of problematic Hollywood producers and directors' assistants being involved. I know of one story where the assistant provided the girls and the women for, the abusive big guy with the cigar. I know that. I know a lot of stories like that. I'm not saying that Leslie did that. I can't prove that. So I can't say it. But as I say, I have my opinion. And I think because the jury's out on Leslie, I don't think she should have been given this opportunity. Because she's not the only gay female producer out there. Really, she's not really even a producer. She was a guy's assistant. And all of a sudden, she's running a Star Wars streaming show. Let's be honest about that. The Acolyte, from what I'm hearing, was always going to be what it was going to be. It was always going to gaslight hardcore Star Wars fans. She-Hulk was always going to gaslight hardcore Marvel fans. Whether you're comic book fans, we know that She-Hulk in the comics is brilliant. If you watch Agents of Smash, she was brilliant in that, which was an animated series on a Saturday morning. But they made her into something else that she isn't. And they sat there gaslighting male audiences, making males the problem. Yet again, it is interesting, because I have been watching some true crime on Netflix, and to see the evil by some women. One woman in a documentary I saw killed her own children. But of course, the loony left, the extremists in Hollywood, would sympathise with those women. Russell T Davies would probably make that woman a guest of honour on Doctor Who. This is where we are. This is how these fucking people think. When it's a man, it's problematic. When it's a woman, there must be mitigating circumstances. This is how these nut jobs think. So I'm choosing love. I'm choosing not to watch The Acolyte because there's no point in me watching The Acolyte because I'm not going to get the Star Wars that I love. Now, Leslie Headland claims that she's a fan of old Star Wars. She's lying. That can't be true. Because from what I'm hearing and the changes she's making to Jedi lore can't be from someone who loves Star Wars. It can only come from someone who doesn't understand Star Wars. One of her cast members complaining that Anakin Skywalker blew up the Death Star and killed all those poor stormtroopers who were going to kill everyone else. Let's not forget that. But it wasn't Anakin, of course, it was his son, Luke Skywalker. But the point being, and point fans who are mocking this are saying, these people know nothing about Star Wars. They don't even know the bare minimum. And this is, of course, an issue, of course. But what you're saying, I think anyone who puts themselves through this, you must be a glutton for punishment. And I know why Nerd Roddick is watching it and why, Disparu is watching it. They run a business on YouTube. It's good for business to shit on this stuff and to talk about this stuff and wind up the fans. I get it. I don't blame you. Money is money. This is the role of your business. But personally, I can't watch it. I can't do this to myself. This is why I watch very few modern movies and modern streaming shows. As I said, I think Doctor Who's one of the few things I'm still watching. And the only reason for that is I still have an affinity for Doctor Who. And I hope that somewhere in Russell's kind of very angry heart, he's still going to give us a good ending of the season. I mean, this week's episode in Doctor Who is the allotted Disney episode. So it's written by two people, two women. Nothing wrong with women writing Doctor Who, of course, but when they're extremist nut jobs, they're a problem. And I've already explained the scene. That's very, very toxic against the man, calling him a Stilton. And what's it like for boys and men watching this? It must be very, very uncomfortable. Because whatever problematic representations of women and diverse groups there were in the entertainment industry's past, it was never done on purpose to hurt people. This is purposely being done to hurt us. So it's vindictive and it's cruel. And whether we're talking about the Acolyte or Doctor Who, it is hurtful. And it's hurtful to all of us. And some people can handle that pain and can respond intellectually. I think Nerd Roddick does find ways to expose these people intellectually. And I think that is important, that we do have people like Nerd Roddick who does, present himself in a really, really interesting, good way. He knows how to expose them. And someone does need to expose them, but it's not going to be me. I won't watch this shit. I won't make this shit money. I choose love. I choose love. I choose to watch old things that I enjoyed. I choose to write fan fiction. I choose to talk about entertainment on this platform. That's what I choose. Love. Because I can't do this anymore. I can't put myself through this anymore. I love the TV series Dexter. Now they're doing a Dexter prequel. We know they're going to rewrite Dexter history. It's all about money, and Michael C. Hall is a producer. Will he narrate the show? I very much doubt it. But he's egging us all on to watch it. Of course, that's why he's there, because they know we love Michael and his performance as Dexter Morgan. So, while they IP mine, I don't mind more reboots and prequels. I think it's bad, but I don't mind if your heart's in the right place. But their heart hasn't been in the right place for a very, very long time. But there's been a transfer of power in Hollywood. And as I say, it's far left, hateful activists that hate us. Hate us who have got a ding-dong between our legs. They hate us. They want to bring us down. They want to put us down. They want to hurt us. And it's difficult. It is very, very difficult to watch, and it's very, very difficult to stay calm. I could sit here for half an hour and swear and call them names and say this and say that. I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am, as you all know. You know, I'm a very polite person. I'm a very jovial person, and I try and do things in an intellectual way. If you follow me on Twitter, ex-Twitter @MoviesTVMad, you know that I do things via laughter and humour as much as I can. I've reacted badly towards some negativity in the past, which I apologise for, because I don't like doing that. That's not me. But even I have my limits. And when I think that my nephews are probably watching all this shit and thinking, what the fuck have I done to these people? Well, the cavemen used to bash women over their head, but my nephews were nowhere near those fucking caves. But they're lunatic nut jobs. This is what you're dealing with. You know, when you're dealing with activists, you can't put logic there. You can't expect them to have logic because they're not very, very well people. That's not me being toxic. I genuinely believe they're not very, very well people. So you have this situation now where entertainment has become toxic, very difficult to consume. And then when you don't go and watch a movie, they say that you suck ass. It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult, people say to me, well, what about Will Smith and what about the Oscar slap? Well, at first I was upset with him because I've always been a big fan of Will's. I think he's a lovely guy, but I do understand he's in a very toxic relationship. He's married to a very, very problematic person, and clearly his mental health and his anxiety wasn't very well because of that toxic relationship. And that's why the guy got the slap, and I forgot his name. Very famous man, but I forgot his name. Who got the slap? And probably the joke was ill-conceived in the first place, but I don't think the guy... It's Chris Tucker, isn't it? He didn't deserve a slap, right? He was joking. But I've moved past that because I think everyone deserves a second chance. And Will has been a very well-behaved gentleman, apart from that moment, since he's been working since a very young man in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which I enjoyed very, very much. So I think he's a really good guy. I think people react. I spoke about my problematic reactions and I've apologised for that. And I mean that apology. And Will has apologised and I think he means that apology. Do I think that Bad Boys 4 will be a success or will the slap damage the movie? I don't think so. I think people will go and see it. I'm not too sure how successful it will be, but I think people like seeing Martin and Will on screen together as these bad boy characters. And I don't think it'll be a huge success, but I don't think it'll be a huge failure. I think it'll be in the middle of the road box office. It'll break even and everyone will move on. And at least they're not gaslighting their audience because Martin and Will are not about that. There's still some very, very good people from old school Hollywood involved in Hollywood, but they're very few and far between. And the dominant force are the nut jobs at Disney and at other studios. And it's a problem. And they don't seem to care that they're losing money. It's weird. That's the thing people ask me. Don't they care that they're not making money, that they're on the verge of bankruptcy? Maybe that's the idea. I said before, maybe because they're also anti-capitalism. They're trying to destroy the capitalist system. Maybe. There is a conspiracy here. I don't know. Because I don't know any business leaders, CEOs in any other business that would purposely sink their business. They know that people are not watching their shit. They know they're in debt. They know they're in trouble. But they keep on doing it. So for Disney, when does it end? Now this is very, very interesting because Deadpool and Wolverine is a film that's not going to gaslight its audience. So it's going to be interesting. People are going to go and enjoy the movie. I hate the fact that it's basically kind of a nostalgic, pulling your nostalgic heartstrings. It's a bit lazy, but people will go and have a good time. Now, will they reboot the MCU via this movie? We're already hearing rumours that the director of that movie may be directing Avengers 5. So if so, this guy, and I forget his name, he's very famous, like producer-director, very much involved with Stranger Things as well. Could he be starting to take over the MCU? Work with Feige or replace Feige? I think there's a good chance of that, or be Feige's brand new kind of director, be the new Russos, if you like, or the new Joss Whedon. Hopefully more Russos than Joss with his problematic history. But I think there's a big chance, and that would point towards Iger thinking, right, we've got to move away from this extreme left messaging for the MCU, and they need to do the same with Star Wars. And eventually they're going to have to do that. But they can't do that while they've got Kathleen Kennedy there. And for some reason, they don't seem to be able to remove her. Because I think from what I've heard over the years, they don't like Kennedy either. But it was George Lucas who put her in place. He has shares in Disney. And I think it's very difficult for them to get rid of her without his permission. And you're thinking, but Mick, how can that work? They're the higher owners of Lucasfilm. How does it work? Well, I don't know the finite details, but I've always been of the mind that unless George Lucas agrees, she can't be removed. And George Lucas is friends with her husband. So it's difficult. And it's complicated. I don't even know if they're still together, by the way, but, who knows what their relationship is. But I think there's complications. I don't think Iger can just remove her. And I think he would be worried about firing a woman. So it's all very complicated, and kind of Lucasfilm is stuck with her. But I don't have to be stuck with anybody. I don't have to consume The Acolyte or Disney's Star Wars, because I know by this point what they're going to do. It's pretty obvious what they're going to do. So why, as a fan, would I put myself through that? Well, you can't know if it's good or bad unless you watch it. I know it's going to be bad. I know. I don't need to watch it. I don't want to be attacked for what's down in my boxer shorts at the end of the day. I don't want to be attacked for being a man. I don't want to be blamed because the cavemen used to bash women over the head. I think this is nonsensical ideology. Ideology of the fucking insane. So why would I put myself through that? Why would I make them money? Why would I give them my ratings? Why would I do that to myself? I don't want to. So I'm not going to. And my suggestion is, if you hate what they're doing, don't consume it. That's the only language they fucking understand when you don't consume their shit. Now, they're claiming nearly 5 million viewers watched the first episode of The Acolyte. Of course, that will go down. There's always an interim. So we'll see. But that's provided by Disney, of course, so they could be lying. It's not like they haven't done that before. So you can't trust these people. These are very, very desperate people. But to me, it doesn't matter if the show flops or is hugely successful. I'm just not interested in consuming it, everyone. Because as I said earlier, I don't want to do it to myself. I don't see the point. And I think more people need to choose love. I'm going to consume old shit that I love. Because a lot of stuff I love has aged really, really well. And there's nothing better than a rewatch of something where you're going to laugh and cry, rather than waving your fists and being upset at their very toxicity. And that's why I will not do it to myself. Because at the end of the day, boys and girls, it's like dating a toxic person or being friends with a toxic person. My advice always is remove yourself from that situation, because they'll never change. And it's the same with New Hollywood. Disney Star Wars. They're never going to change. It isn't going to change within the short term. So why do it to yourself? Why keep on going on social media and saying the same things? I can have a good laugh at them. That's great. You can have a good laugh at them. But at the end of the day, if I know someone hates me, why consume what they're making? They keep on telling me it's not made for us. It's not made for me. Fine, then I won't consume it then. So that's great. And when we don't consume it, like when we didn't consume Charlie's Angels, we get blamed for not going and supporting Wham-Man. And it's laughable. The extreme left are laughable. And you watch them attack Joker 2 when, Lady Gaga embraces what it is to be Harley Quinn. It'll be interesting. I don't expect her to be that villainous. She's a woman. We're in Hollywood. I don't believe that Hollywood want to make the real Harley. The real Harley is a fucking killer, a brutal killer. She ain't a good person. She's funny. She's got a funny voice, but she's a bad one. She's a fucking villain. She's one of those women you see in true crime documentaries, but exaggerated. But because it's Hollywood, and so women wouldn't do anything wrong. It's just the men, right? It's Joker who made her do all those things. Fuck off, is it? Fuck off. She knew exactly what she was doing. Whether you're looking at her adventures in the comics or her original adventures in Batman the Animated Series, the Joker didn't get a gun and force her to do what she did. He didn't manipulate her like they've tried to do in some of their works. She wanted the Joker. She was excited for the Joker. She got wet for the Joker. That's why she did what she did. Women can be just as dangerous as men. But in terms of what's going on in New Hollywood right now, it's time to choose love.